the land of great thirst. It's not a desert that can be explained with a single image, because here the word emptiness is a trap. At first glance, everything seems motionless, a sea of red sand, a vast plateau, a horizon that stretches as if it had no end. But the Kalahari is not still, it is at work. The wind moves it, the heat rewrites it, the cold hardens it, and life, always life, finds cracks to seep in where anyone would swear there is no room. This region extends over a huge area, larger than the mind usually imagines when thinking of desert. It is an ancient mantle of sand deposited over millions of years, a layer that covers geological history like a red sheet. For tens of millions of years, the mountains aged, wore down, and yielded to the patience of time. Dust accumulated, became grain, the grain became a wave, the wave became a dune, and the dune eventually formed this landscape that seems simple, but is the result of an endless transformation. Here, water doesn't give itself up. It hides. The rain falls when it wants, sometimes like a furious downpour, sometimes like a brief murmur that barely stains the ground. And it almost always disappears immediately, absorbed by the sand as if the earth had been thirsty for centuries. That absorption is swift, almost cruel. The puddle doesn't last long, the shine fades, and the ground returns to its usual state, cracked, hot, and hard. However, that very speed is part of the game. The Kalahari doesn't accumulate water on the surface. It stores it underground in layers where the moisture is trapped for a time, long enough to sustain roots, insects, burrows, and strategies. The Kalahari is a place of absolute extremes. In summer, the ground feels like a burning iron. The air ripples and everything distorts, as if the landscape were breathing fire. In winter, the night brings a shockingly low temperature. The cold seeps into your skin, chills you to the bone, and the desert transforms. The same place that scorches at midday can freeze before dawn. The red sand, which seems alive by day, becomes a silent surface at night, holding on to the cold like a warning. And yet, amidst that hardship, life persists, not with ostentatious abundance, but with discipline. Here, survival is about managing energy, managing shade, managing water, managing risks. Each species is a different answer to the same question. How do you live where everything seems designed to wear you down? In the Kalahari, there are exceptions within the desert, areas where the world shifts in tone. A dry riverbed that still holds moisture deep within, a low-lying area where water collects for hours after a rain, a depression that traps shade and creates a minimal but precious microclimate. Sometimes they are true oases, with denser vegetation, mud, and multiple intersecting footprints because everyone eventually arrives there. Other times they are almost oases, not visible from afar, but green enough for a hardy grass to dare to sprout, enough for insects to thrive, enough for the food chain to have a foothold. There are rock formations that appear like solitary fortresses in the vast red expanse, stones that rise up as if the landscape had left there a reminder of its antiquity. Shadow gathers in their crevices. The shadow retains moisture. The moisture attracts tiny organisms, and those organisms become food, a reason to stay, the foundation for something greater. In a desert, rock is not just rock. It is thermal shelter, a wall, a hiding place, a border, an opportunity. When dawn breaks, the Kalahari doesn't feel like a gentle start. It feels like the resumption of an ordeal. The light falls slowly on the red sand, awakening an activity that seemed non-existent. If you look closely at the ground, you begin to notice signs, small mounds, holes, fine markings. The desert is full of doorways, and behind those doorways, life is preparing. From a burrow, a small face emerges first, bright eyes, a twitching nose, a meerkat. It doesn't emerge confidently. It emerges sizing up the world. It looks around with a concentration that seems exaggerated, but here a mistake isn't a stumble, it's the end. The group begins to emerge, one after another, like pieces of a coordinated mechanism. They stretch, yawn, sniff, and almost immediately one takes up a sentinel position, rising onto its hind legs, upright, its gaze fixed on the horizon. Meerkats are a perfect symbol of the Kalahari because their existence is based on vigilance and unity. They are small, yes, but they don't behave like fragile creatures. They behave like a community trained by danger. Their day begins with protocols, checking the surroundings, recognizing threats, assessing the relative security of the area, deciding where to move. Here, organization isn't a social luxury, it's a survival tool. Today, the atmosphere within the colony is more tense than on other mornings. The cubs are venturing outside for the first time. They are barely a few weeks old. They are small, clumsy, too curious to be cautious, and the Kalahari does not forgive those who learn slowly. The cubs cling to their mother, advancing with unsteady steps across the still fresh sand, and the world suddenly descends upon them. The rapidly rising sun, the wind carrying dust, the distant sounds of birds, the crackle of a dry branch, the sudden silence that sometimes heralds a predator. Everything is new to them. Everything is a potential threat. Their mother won't let them stray. Another adult stays close. And the sentinel never lets his guard down, because the Kalahari is full of hunters who thrive on the mistakes of others. The shadow that appears near the ground isn't always seen in time. Sometimes it's not a shadow, it's a line, a snake. Its body slithers without raising a dust cloud, and that silence is part of its advantage. The forked tongue tests the air, detects molecules, interprets invisible signals. It seeks warmth, seeks movement, seeks the possibility of a swift strike. A hatchling with its clumsiness can be the perfect target. At that moment, the difference between life and death isn't determined by strength, but by the speed of the collective reaction. An adult detects something. They sit up tensely and emit a sharp call. It's not a chaotic shout, it's an alarm that signifies danger with a precision the colony understands without a doubt. The reaction is immediate. The young are pushed toward the safety of the loose sand, into hollows, toward the path back to the burrow. The adults advance together, surround the snake, hiss and approach with courage, not to attack impulsively, but to assert their presence. The snake stops, raises its head, and assesses the situation, because even a predator knows how to calculate costs. Faced with a single, defenseless prey, the choice is obvious. Faced with a coordinated group, the equation changes. The meerkats advance step by step, as if they were larger than they are, and this psychological effect works. The snake decides to retreat. It slithers into the dry grass, disappearing as if it had never been there. The danger leaves without a spectacle, and that is the daily reality of the Kalahari. Survival doesn't always have a soundtrack. Often it involves silent decisions. The cubs raise their heads, still not fully understanding what happened. But what happened was a lesson, the first. In this world, you don't survive by being fast alone. You survive by being alert. And you survive better if you belong to a we. As the sun rises, the ground heats up rapidly. The colony moves, foraging, digging, locating insects, larvae, and small reptiles. Every bite counts. In a desert, diet becomes pragmatic. Meerkats can't afford to be selective when energy is limited. Moreover, every excursion is a risk. While searching for food, they also become potential prey. That's why vigilance never ceases. There's always one watching. There's always one ready to sound the alarm. But the Kalahari is not just a small world. In the same red sandscape, tiny creatures and giants can coexist. And in that contrast, you feel the true scale of the desert, a place where everyone is bound by the same thirst, regardless of size. Elsewhere, a female ostrich huddles low to the ground, trying to conserve heat on a cold morning. Her dusty plumage traps a bit of warm air. But the cold is only part of the challenge. The other part is hunger, and hunger doesn't wait for the day to warm up. The ostrich is large, yes, and its size is impressive, but the desert doesn't respect size. It respects adaptation. When the seasons change and the reproductive cycle begins, male ostriches become more aggressive. Their legs and skin take on reddish hues, hormonal signals of strength. They become territorial, expelling rivals and defending their space. In this communal breeding system, several females lay eggs in the same nest. But within this apparent cooperation, a hierarchy exists. A dominant female, favored by the male, usually incubates with him and leads the defense of the nest. In the Kalahari, even raising young is organized with strict rules because mistakes can cost generations. The ostrich has a particular advantage. It can see far. Its height, which in other circumstances would be merely a physical characteristic, here becomes like radar. From a distance, it can detect suspicious movement in the sand. And that suspicious movement is often the predator that dominates even the desert, the lion. The lions of the Kalahari are not the same as those you might imagine in a more bountiful savanna. Here, the desert forces a change of plans. Energy is more valuable than pride. Hunting is a constant gamble. Large herds of prey aren't always present. Sometimes food is scarce, fleeting, and wary, and that's why the lions become experts in patience, in reading the terrain, in knowing where to wait. At the height of the dry season, dry riverbeds become corridors of life. There, the earth holds moisture. There, the grass retains its last hue of green. There, inevitably, prey pass through. Lions learn to make their mark in these places. They don't need to hunt the entire desert. They need to dominate the points where the desert becomes unavoidable. A springbok appears as a promise of food. Slender antelope, bright eyes, curved horns. To a hungry lion, it's a valuable feast, but the Kalahari is open, too open. Ambush becomes difficult when the horizon offers no hiding places. The element of surprise, the lion's classic weapon, is diminished. And the springbok, which lives in this world, knows it. Its survival is built on nerves of steel. The moment it detects intent, it explodes into speed. It runs, and it doesn't run just for the sake of running. It runs as if it knows the desert rewards those who expend the least energy at the right moment. Its legs propel it forward with almost absurd lightness, and in seconds the distance becomes a wall. Sometimes the springbok even leaps high, a behavior that seems playful but is actually a message. I saw you, it's not worth it. In the Kalahari, that message can save a life because it forces the predator to calculate the cost of the chase. The lion slows down. It's not always defeat, often it's wisdom. Because here, chasing without a guarantee is wasting what might be needed tomorrow. In the Kalahari, energy is worth more than pride, and a predator that doesn't learn that ends up becoming its own prey. Meanwhile, the sun continues its ascent and the sand grows ever hotter. The creatures adjust their routines. Some hide. Others seek shade. Still others, like the meerkats, remain active, but with strategic pauses. Life here is a clock made of temperature. The calendar doesn't rule, the heat does. And as the day progresses, the Kalahari reveals another secret. It is not a uniform landscape. Within this Red Sea, there are corridors of vegetation, thorny bushes, areas of taller grass, and depressions where the humidity lingers longer. These small changes are enough to alter the distribution of life. Where there is shade, there is shelter. Where there is shelter, there is prey. Where there is prey, there is a hunter. Everything is connected by the logic of water and heat. As evening approaches, the desert's hues soften. The dunes lose the white glare of the direct sunlight and regain their deep, almost violet red. The wind carries a different air, and the Kalahari prepares for its second shift, night. Because when the sun sets, many creatures that seemed absent reappear. The desert changes hands. Before the night's chill sets in, the meerkat colony returns to its burrow. They huddle together, snuggle up, and press against one another. This closeness isn't just a defense against predators, it's also a defense against the cold. Outside, the sand begins to cool. The same surface that was scorching hot just hours ago is now rapidly losing heat. The Kalahari never stays in one place. It's always on the move. And as the sky darkens, the desert, silent, continues doing what it always does, testing every animal, every strategy, every instinct. Here, living is not a state, it is a task. A task repeated every day, like a promise renewed with each sunrise. Night falls in the Kalahari not as a respite, but as a shift in the rules. The heat that seemed endless during the day quickly dissipates, and the cold begins to seep between the grains of red sand like a silent presence. The sky fills with stars with a clarity that exists only where there are no human lights, and this luminous immensity makes the desert seem even larger. At that moment, when the horizon fades and the landscape becomes a realm of shadows, other lives awaken. From deep burrows, nocturnal creatures emerge with cautious movements. The sand still retains a sliver of warmth, enough for the reptiles to come out and take advantage of it. Low-bodied lizards move close to the ground, pausing every few steps to gauge vibrations. Winged insects appear as brief flashes around thorny bushes. In the Kalahari, the night is not absolute silence. It is a continuous murmur of small footsteps, drawn-out breaths, and wings brushing against the cold air. For many predators, darkness is an ally. Herbivores' vision becomes less reliable, and hearing becomes the dominant sense. Every crack of a dry branch can betray a presence. Every pause can be a calculation. In this world, hunting is not just about chasing. It's about interpreting the landscape as if it were a living map of sounds, smells, and minute changes in temperature. The lion, which conserves energy in the shade during the day, rises with the setting sun. It doesn't roar. It doesn't need to announce itself. Its strength lies in its discretion. It moves with a deceptive slowness, its paws landing with a softness that belies its size. In the Kalahari, even the largest predator must learn to move like a shadow because the desert offers few hiding places. The lion relies on the night to compensate for the lack of cover. In the distance, a herd of antelope instinctively huddles together. They aren't sleeping soundly. They're dozing. They take turns, standing guard. In the desert, complete rest is a dangerous luxury. Their bodies draw closer to conserve heat, but they keep their eyes open. Their collective breathing creates a low, almost imperceptible rhythm that blends with the wind. Closer to the ground, a short, slender figure moves with unsettling confidence. The honey badger advances through the undergrowth, its silhouette barely visible in the dim light. It's not large, not as swift as a cheetah, not as strong as a lion, but in the Kalahari, its reputation outweighs its size. It moves as if fear weren't an option. Its compact body, thick fur, and constant defiance make it a living anomaly in an ecosystem where almost everything flees from almost everything else. The honey badger sniffs the ground, pauses, and digs with short but powerful claws. It searches for grubs, small rodents, any source of protein that will sustain its energy in an environment where food is neither plentiful nor predictable. Sometimes it raises its head and remains motionless, listening. It knows it is not invulnerable, but it also knows that most predators prefer to avoid the cost of confronting it. In the Kalahari, reputation is a form of armor. A harsh murmur cuts through the air. In the distance, hyenas begin their patrol. Their laughter isn't mockery, it's communication. They move in loose groups, sniffing out scraps, traces, opportunities. They aren't just looking to hunt, they're looking to take advantage of what others leave behind. In an ecosystem of limited resources, the recycling of death is part of the balance. Hyenas are neither villains nor heroes. They are operators of a system that wastes nothing. The lion hears those laughs and adjusts his course. He doesn't want competition at the wrong time. Sometimes even the king of the desert prefers to avoid a conflict that won't provide him with immediate sustenance. The Kalahari teaches prudence even to those who seem to need it. Near a dry riverbed where the sand retains moisture in deep layers, a group of elephants moves slowly forward. They are giants in a landscape not designed for giants. Their imposing bodies contrast sharply with the fragility of their surroundings. Each step raises fine dust. Each breath sounds like an ancient whisper. Elephants rely on memory to survive here. They remember roots. They remember temporary waterholes. They remember trees that retain moisture. The matriarch leads the group to a spot where, in seasons past, water appeared, even if only for a few days. That memory is a map that exists nowhere but in her mind. When they find a trace of moisture, they don't celebrate. They drink calmly. The young approach after the adults. It's not an empty hierarchy, it's strategy. In the Kalahari, if the adults weaken, the entire group loses its defense. Raising young here is a collective investment in future strength. Further on in the strip of vegetation that marks an ancient watercourse, African wild dogs gather. They don't move with the solemnity of a lion. They move with a nervous, almost joyful energy. They brush against each other, sniff each other, and emit short sounds. They are coordinating. Hunting for them is not a solitary act, it is a choreography. In the Kalahari, where prey can be scarce and distances long, their greatest advantage is cooperation. They are not the largest or the strongest, but their hunting success rate is one of the highest on the continent. That is no accident. It is the result of a strategy that prioritizes the group over the individual. The herd advances in a fan shape, using the open terrain to their advantage. They don't seek to ambush from the shadows, they seek to tire out their prey. In an environment where the daytime heat is exhausting, stamina becomes a weapon. An antelope breaks away from the group, and the chase begins like a burst of movement in the twilight. It's not a short run. It's a sustained pursuit, where the mistake isn't stumbling, but choosing the wrong moment to accelerate. In the end, when the prey falls, the herd doesn't fight over the spoils. They share. Even the wounded or straggling individuals receive food. In the Kalahari, cooperation isn't a moral value. It's a condition for survival. Meanwhile, the nocturnal rodents emerge to forage for seeds and shoots. Their small bodies lose heat quickly, so they move with urgency, alternating between bursts of activity and short pauses in makeshift shelters. Every grain they find is energy that can make all the difference at dawn. For them, the night is a race against the cold. The reptiles, which sought refuge from the extreme heat during the day, now take advantage of the milder temperatures to move about. Snakes slither across the sand in strokes that resemble calligraphy. Lizards pause beside rocks that still retain a bit of warmth. The Kalahari night is not uniform. It is a mosaic of microclimates that shift slowly with the wind. In this nocturnal setting, the desert reveals another of its truths. It is not a place devoid of resources, but rather a place of scarce resources. Food is not found without cost. Water is not drunk without risk. Shade is not claimed without competition. Everything demands calculation. As night falls, the cold intensifies. The sand, which during the day seemed inexhaustible in its warmth, now becomes a surface that steals heat from the body. The animals adjust their postures, huddle together, seek contact, and look for the smallest shelters. Even predators reduce their activity when the energy expenditure outweighs the potential gain. The lion pauses on a low rise. He observes. He is not hunting tonight. The information he gathers is as valuable as a failed attempt. He learns routes, movements, patterns. In the Kalahari, knowing the terrain is almost as important as having claws. As the sky begins to lighten on the horizon, night slowly relinquishes its hold. There is no abrupt change. There is a gradual transition, as if the desert were taking a deep breath before returning to the warmth. The stars fade one by one. The wind shifts direction, and the nocturnal creatures begin to retreat to their shelters while the diurnal ones prepare to emerge once more. The Kalahari doesn't distinguish between day and night as opposing phases, but rather as shifts in the same challenge. Life here never rests. It unfolds in distinct cycles of risk. Each dawn is not a promise of tranquility, but a new round of decisions. And in each round, the desert reminds all its inhabitants of the same lesson. There is no room for carelessness when thirst rules the territory. When the sun once again takes hold of the Kalahari, night retreats, leaving no trace of its silent activity. The red sand regains its fiery hue, and the air begins to vibrate with a heat that grows by the minute. The light reveals recent traces, claw marks, serpentine lines, small craters where someone dug in search of food. The entire landscape is an open archive of what happened while the world seemed to sleep. Dawn is not a promise of calm. It is the start of another ordeal. The temperature rises quickly, and with it the cost of every move. Creatures that cannot withstand the extreme heat seek refuge early, under thorny bushes, in deep burrows, in rock crevices where shade is a treasure. In the Kalahari, shade is not comfort, it is survival. The meerkats emerge from their burrows with an almost rehearsed order. One stands guard while the others begin searching for food. Their small bodies lose water easily, so each foray is brief and precise. They capture insects, small beetles, and larvae that live beneath the sand. They waste no time. The colony moves as a single entity. When one tenses, they all tense. When one flees, they all disappear underground. There is no time for hesitation. Coordination is their shield against a sky where birds of prey circle slowly. Against the horizon, a bird glides with outstretched wings, riding the thermals rising from the hot ground. From above, the desert appears uniform, but the bird discerns minute irregularities, a distinct sheen that betrays humidity, a shadow that doesn't align with the wind's movement. Aerial hunting in the Kalahari demands patience. Prey is scarce, so each descent must be calculated. A mistake is not only a missed opportunity, it's wasted energy in a place where every calorie counts. On the open plains, a herd of antelope moves with measured steps. They don't run without reason. They run when necessary. The strategy here isn't always to flee, but to conserve energy for when danger is real. Their bodies are designed to dissipate heat quickly. Their wide nostrils help cool the blood flowing to their brains. Each adaptation is a response to an environment that doesn't tolerate excess. Near a clump of low acacia trees, the elephants advance with a clear objective, a spot where the ground beneath layers of sand holds moisture. There are no visible puddles, no rivers, only memory. The adults use their feet and sometimes their tusks to stir the surface until dark mud appears. The water doesn't gush, it reveals itself. They drink slowly, then cover themselves with mud. It's not just to cool off. The mud protects their skin from the sun and from insects that take advantage of the vulnerability in the extreme heat. The calves clumsily imitate the gesture. They learn by watching. In the Kalahari, learning isn't theoretical. It's immediate and vital. By mid-morning, the desert begins to empty of visible movement. Predators reduce their activity. Even the lion seeks shade. Hunting in the high sun is inefficient. The heat betrays, exhausts, and confuses. The wild dogs retreat to an area where the vegetation is only slightly denser. They lie close together, panting. They don't stray too far. The contact reduces stress and allows them to react quickly if a threat appears. The group's cohesion is maintained even during rest. On the ground, the honey badger stops beneath a rock. The heat forces it to change its pace. It is not invincible to the sun. It moves in short bursts, seeking temporary shelter. Sometimes it finds scraps of food abandoned by other predators. It is not pride that makes it take advantage of them. It is pragmatism. In the Kalahari, the line between hunter and scavenger is blurred. Eating is eating, and survival makes no distinction between methods. The air grows heavier as the day progresses. The plants exhibit their own form of resilience. Small-leaved shrubs reduce water loss. Thorns replace large leaves. Deep roots reach moist layers that don't exist at the surface. Vegetation is not abundant, but it is persistent. Each plant that manages to stay alive becomes a foothold for insects, and those insects support small vertebrates. The Kalahari is a system of minimal dependencies that, together, form a resilient network. In the distance, a group of hyenas roams a vast territory, sniffing the wind. They search for tracks, remains, signs of recent activity. They are in no hurry. The efficiency of their search lies in covering great distances with moderate energy expenditure. They don't confront the lions directly unless necessary. They prefer to wait, to calculate, to wear the other down. In this wilderness, time is as much a tool as their fangs. Near a rocky outcrop, reptiles freeze to avoid dehydration. Their metabolism allows them long periods of stillness. The Kalahari doesn't just select for speed or strength, it selects for the ability to stop. Knowing when not to move is as valuable an adaptation as knowing how to run. Around midday, the horizon trembles with mirages. The heat distorts perception. What appears to be water is air. What appears to be shadow is deceptive light. Experienced animals are not fooled by such illusions. Young ones sometimes are. The desert teaches quickly, and its lessons are not repeated without cost. Beneath a bush, a young antelope breathes rapidly. Its mother stays close, positioning herself between the calf and the direct sunlight. The mother's body is a moving shadow. The protection here is not only from predators, but from the environment itself. The Kalahari transforms every adult into a refuge for its offspring. When the sun reaches its zenith, activity dwindles to a minimum. The desert enters a tense pause. It's not true stillness, but rather a restraint. Underground, in hollows, in crevices, life waits. This waiting is not passivity. It's a strategy. The Kalahari doesn't reward constant movement, it rewards timely movement. As evening approaches, the heat slowly begins to subside. The air becomes breathable, shadows lengthen. The first stirrings of activity reappear. Small rodents emerge, test the air, retreat, and then reappear. Birds flit between shady spots, searching for insects awakened by the drop in temperature. Predators prepare for another shift. The desert offers no long respites. Every shift in light and temperature reconfigures the landscape. The same individuals who were hiding hours ago are now preparing to move. In the Kalahari, survival depends not on a single skill, but on the ability to read the rhythm of the place and adjust one's own pace to that relentless pulse. As dusk begins to paint the Kalahari in shades of copper and violet, the changing light brings back the activity that the midday sun had stifled. The air loses some of its harshness, and each breath ceases to burn from within. Shadows lengthen like fingers reaching for the lingering heat of the ground. In this brief yet crucial window of time, the desert opens a window for those who know how to seize it. The wild dogs rise almost simultaneously, as if an invisible signal were coursing through the pack. There are no audible commands, only glances, shifts in posture, a tension that spreads from body to body. The group fans out, testing the wind. The scent of the antelopes arrives fragmented, carried by irregular currents that still retain heat. They won't pursue immediately. First, they gauge the distance, the direction, the density of the terrain. In the Kalahari, hunting isn't a burst of initial speed, it's a sequence of linked decisions. Further on, a pair of lions moves slowly. They are not the absolute masters of this open landscape. Here, their advantage diminishes. The low vegetation offers no prolonged concealment. They know that a frontal ambush rarely works. That's why they seek out edges. Dry riverbeds, depressions where the sand changes texture, areas where visibility is fragmented by small slopes. The lioness advances a few meters, stops, returns. The male conserves energy. In the Kalahari, a mistake isn't punished with a minor wound. It's punished with days of hunger. The springbok raises its head before the danger is even visible. It doesn't need to see to know. The wind carries a metallic note that doesn't belong in the landscape. The herd compacts for an instant, then scatters in unpredictable directions. It's not panic, it's a learned choreography. Each individual chooses a different path so the predator can't fixate on a target. By the time the first lion pounces, the distance is already too great. The springbok accelerates, making high leaps that seem like a challenge and at the same time a message to its group. Energy is conserved by fleeing, not fighting. The lion soon gives up. Wisdom in this wilderness also lies in knowing when not to persist. In an area of thorny bushes, the honey badger stirs again. The drop in temperature reignites its urgency. It sniffs at crevices, stirs the sand with its claws, listens with its ear pressed to the ground. A faint rustling sound betrays an underground nest. It digs quickly without ceremony. The prey has no time. The badger eats standing up, alert. It doesn't pause to savor. The Kalahari offers no leisurely feasts. Hyenas appear in the slanting light, shadows advancing with a seemingly carefree rhythm, but they are not. Their patrol routes cover vast distances. They seek opportunities, a trail of blood, an exhausted animal, a scrap left behind by others. In this landscape, their advantage is not surprise, but persistence. They can cover kilometers without losing efficiency. Where others tire, they continue. Where others retreat, they wait. Near a rocky outcrop, small reptiles emerge to bask in the last light of day. Their bodies need this thermal boost to fuel their nocturnal hunting. Insects begin to buzz in the air. The Kalahari, which seemed deserted at midday, now fills with the smallest signs: a flapping of wings, a clicking sound, a rustling against the sand. Each sound is information for those who know how to interpret it. At the edge of a depression, an elephant stops. The group rests. They won't drink now. They'll reach the groundwater later when the heat has completely subsided. The matriarch surveys her surroundings with a calmness that is not indifference but accumulated experience. In her memory are droughts, roots that no longer exist, spots where the sand deceives. That memory guides the group's steps more than any immediate stimulus. The sky slowly fades. The first stars appear like holes in a dark canvas. With nightfall, the Kalahari changes hands. The nocturnal predators sharpen their senses. The leopard now moves with the advantage. Its fur blends into the shadows. It doesn't run, it glides. It chooses a high vantage point from which to observe an area where small antelopes approach green shoots that sprouted after an ancient rain. The leopard waits. Patience here is not a moral virtue, it is a hunting tool. A rodent crosses an open area and the leopard ignores it. It's not its ideal prey. It's saving its energy for something worth the effort. In the Kalahari, making the wrong choice isn't just missing an opportunity, it's jeopardizing the next day. In the distance, the wild dogs begin their coordinated chase. They aren't pursuing a random, isolated prey. The pack spreads out, cutting off paths, forcing the antelope to change course again and again. There's no immediate final blow, there's attrition. The swift antelope resists at first, but every turn takes its toll. The chase is long, and that's intentional. When the animal makes the first coordination error, the group capitalizes. The end is swift. The food is shared without rigid hierarchies. Even the youngest get first. The survival of the group outweighs the strength of the individual. The night thickens, sounds become sharper. An owl cuts through the air with a silent flight. It hunts small rodents that venture too far from their shelters. Above ground, the sand cools. Underground, the temperature remains steady. Many creatures spend the night protected by this thermal inertia. The Kalahari is not just an open space, it is a system of layers, of surfaces and depths that offer refuge to different rhythms of life. Hyenas find the remains of wild dogs' hunts. They don't try to confront them now, they wait for them to retreat. Then their jaws turn bones into food. Recycling is part of the desert's design. Nothing goes to waste for long. At midnight, the Kalahari appears still from afar, but up close it's a labyrinth of minute movements. A beetle pushes a sphere of organic matter. A gecko crawls across a rock. A jackal sniffs the wind, deciding not to approach a group of resting lions. Each decision, each micro-adjustment is a life form adapting to a land that offers no comforts. The moon rises and the desert takes on a pale glow. Footprints become visible like ephemeral writing. Tomorrow, the wind will erase most of them. The Kalahari doesn't keep permanent records, it keeps processes. And in that flow of heat, shadow, hunger and stillness, every creature learns to exist without wasting what it cannot recover. Energy, time and attention. Before dawn, the Kalahari breathes with a dense silence that is not calm, but concentration. The night's chill still clings to the sand, and the sky, studded with stars that fade one by one, announces the sun's return with a clarity that offers no mercy. In that interval, when darkness still protects and the light has not yet betrayed, weary bodies readjust. There is no complete rest in this land. There are strategic pauses. The lions rise slowly. The male shakes his mane, heavy with fine dust that falls like ash. The lioness, thinner, stretches the muscles that will soon be used again. There are no roars. Sound is a luxury that betrays their presence. They move toward a depression where the ground retains moisture. They are not looking for surface water. They are looking for traces of recent passage. Where prey has passed, the ground is marked in a way that only a trained eye can recognize. A slight flattening of the sparse grass, a footprint not yet blurred by the night wind. They follow this ephemeral writing like someone following a map that fades with every step. At that same hour, the pack of wild dogs returns to its resting area. Their bodies bear the toll of the chase, deep breaths, tongues lolling out, footsteps still vibrating with the memory of the run. They don't disperse. Proximity provides warmth and shared vigilance. A wounded individual receives brief licks on its flank. This isn't romantic compassion, it's functional care. A weak member puts everyone at risk. Keeping it alive is maintaining the cohesion of the group. The desert begins to change color. From pale violet, it fades to a soft orange. The sand seems to awaken. On the edges of an ancient dry riverbed, small green shoots emerge where an old rain left its promise. Antelopes approach cautiously. They don't drink, they nibble at the little the ground offers. Their ears twitch incessantly. The Kalahari teaches how to eat without losing sight of the surroundings. Each bite is a break in vigilance. On a rocky mound, the leopard descends from its nighttime refuge. It has eaten enough not to expose itself now. It seeks a high place where the early sun will warm its body without making it visible from afar. The stone retains the night's chill and releases it slowly. This thermal exchange is a gift to those who know how to use it. The leopard remains motionless, blending into the pattern of shadows. Stillness is not inaction, it is economy. The honey badger emerges from its burrow, its snout covered in dust. The night provided sustenance, but not satiation. In the Kalahari, satiation is rare. Satiation is fleeting. It sniffs the air, detects the proximity of a group of hyenas, and decides to change direction. It doesn't flee hastily, it chooses routes where the low vegetation offers intermediate hiding places. Its strategy isn't always to confront, but to avoid when the disadvantage is clear. Courage here isn't recklessness, it's gauging when to bite and when to move on. The birds begin their morning migration. Some fly low, taking advantage of insects that emerge with the first warmth. Others rise to gain perspective. A bird of prey traces wide circles. It doesn't descend yet. It observes. The Kalahari doesn't offer easy prey at dawn. Most animals are still alert from the night's activity. The aerial predator waits for the rhythm of the day to dull their attention. Near a patch of bushes, the meerkats reappear. A sentinel stands erect, body rigid, gaze fixed on the sky. The others dig quickly, extracting larvae, small invertebrates. The colony moves in microbursts of activity. Go out, take, return to watch. Repetition is their strength. Each individual relies on the vigilance of the others. This trust reduces the time they are exposed. The heat rises with a relentless pace. The sand begins to burn. The animals adjust their routes, treading on more compact areas or those shaded by rocks. Small details matter. A misstep can cause a burn that over time becomes infected. In the Kalahari, small wounds grow larger due to the lack of resources to heal. Preventing injury is as vital as treating it. Hyenas cross lion territory without openly challenging them. They leave scent markings along the edges, messages that don't seek direct confrontation but rather silent negotiation. The desert is vast, but the usable areas overlap. Coexistence here isn't harmony, it's a balance of tensions where each group gauges how far to advance without incurring greater costs. On an open plain, a young springbok momentarily leaves the herd to reach a greener shoot. The gesture is minimal but enough to attract attention. A jackal watches from afar. It doesn't attack. The risk is high in broad daylight. It decides to wait. Patience once again is the currency of this place. As the sun rises, activity slows once more. Animals seek shelter. The Kalahari enters its daytime quiet phase. Beneath the surface, in burrows and crevices, life continues in slow, steady breaths. The surface becomes a hot, scorching surface where only the fittest dare to cross long distances. In that threshold between morning and midday, the desert remembers its cardinal rule. Move when the environment allows, stop when the environment demands. There is no heroism in defying the heat, there is survival in obeying it. And as the light hardens and the wind carries fine dust that covers fresh footprints, the Kalahari prepares for another cycle of trials where every creature will once again read the landscape, expend energy carefully, and gamble on the right decision on a board that reinvents itself with every shift in light. The sun sets with a deceptive slowness, and the Kalahari seems to loosen the tension it held for hours. It's not true relief, it's a change of rules. The sand stops burning, but the thirst doesn't disappear. The air becomes more breathable, and with that small margin of comfort, movement returns. In this land, sunset doesn't herald rest, it heralds opportunity. The antelopes reappear first, as if testing the ground. They advance in open lines, not crowding together so as not to present an easy target. Each individual maintains a precise distance from the next, a pattern learned through hard losses. The wind carries mingled scents, dry vegetation, dust, a faint trail of a feline that hasn't quite disappeared. Nostrils tingle, the herd doesn't stop, it adjusts its route. On a low rise, the lion watches motionless. He doesn't roar. He lets the twilight do its work. Blurring outlines, deceiving depths, concealing intentions, the lionesses fan out, separated by silences that are agreements. There are no visible orders. There is a shared memory of failed hunts and repeated successes. They know that in open terrain, mistakes are costly. They wait for the group to approach a strip of scattered bushes where the grass breaks their line of sight for fleeting moments. Those moments are all they need. Farther on, the wild dogs resume their march with a rhythm that seems light but isn't. It's a pace designed to be sustained for miles. They aren't chasing yet. They're trying to read the general movement of their prey, anticipating where the desert's invisible net will tighten. Their coordination doesn't come from impulse, but from the repetition of subtle signals, an ear that twitches, a change of gait, a turn that the others imitate without question. At the edge of a long shadow, the leopard stretches and descends from its perch. The sunset belongs to it. The sidelight makes its fur blend seamlessly with the texture of the mottled sand. It moves silently toward a natural corridor through the undergrowth. It doesn't need to run. It needs to get close enough for the leap to be decisive. The Kalahari grants no second chances to those who betray themselves. Hyenas move with the calm of those who don't depend on a single success. Their advantage is persistence. They track recent scents, testing the ground where others have hunted. They don't seek a direct fight. They look for scraps, mistakes, the weariness of others. At this time of day, the line between hunting and stealing is porous. The desert tolerates both methods. On the still warm surface, the meerkats emerge once more. A sentinel takes its post, body erect, back tense with alertness. The others emerge in short bursts, extract food and return to cover. The routine repeats itself until the sky goes completely dark. Twilight is the most dangerous time for the little ones. The light offers no protection. The darkness has not yet fully enveloped them. The colony knows this and adjusts its timing with precision. The lion's first attempt at a chase fails. The herd of antelope splits in two directions and the confusion works in the lion's favor. The lionesses don't pursue far. They stop, reassess. In the Kalahari, persisting in a losing chase is a waste of energy that can't be recovered. They retreat to the shadowed area, waiting for the next move on the board. Wild dogs, on the other hand, detect an individual lagging behind due to exhaustion. They don't suddenly accelerate. They maintain constant pressure that allows no rest. The antelope runs, changes direction, tries to break the line of advance. The herd reorganizes with an almost choreographed turn. There are no individual heroes. There is a planned attrition that eventually breaks the resistance of the straggler. When it falls, the group doesn't scatter in fights. It eats quickly, shares with the slower ones. The meal is brief, the cohesion long-lasting. The scent of blood attracts the hyenas. They approach cautiously, gauging the pack's strength. They take no risks now. The cost would be high. They wait for the wild dogs to retreat, their stomachs barely full. Patience pays off once again. When the pack moves on, the hyenas occupy the site, cleaning up what remains. The Kalahari wastes nothing. Each carcass feeds more than one species. The cycle of use is not cruel, it is efficient. In the dim light, the leopard seizes its opportunity. A leap, a precise bite. The prey's body tenses and surrenders in seconds. The feline drags its prize toward a low tree. Lifting the prey secures it. Above, the desert's noise arrives muffled. Below, scavengers prowl. The height is temporary safety. Night fully envelops the landscape. The cold returns swiftly. The animals that survive the day feel the relief of the cooler temperatures. They move more, eat more, take a few more risks. The Kalahari transforms into a map of sounds, breathing, soft footsteps, a distant growl, the rustling of the wind through thorny bushes. Every sound is information. At some point, the lions try again. This time, luck is on their side. A lioness manages to isolate prey at the edge of the scrubland. The strike is swift. There is no celebration. There is only urgent consumption. They know others will come. The desert watches without judgment. The night neither rewards nor punishes. It allows the cycle to continue. Near a depression where the sand retains moisture, the honey badger finds an insect nest. It eats hurriedly, enduring bites that barely slow it down. It's not invulnerable, but its fur and its determination reduce the cost of each minor encounter. It moves away before the noise attracts larger competitors. Retreat is part of its strategy. When the sky fills with stars and the Kalahari resembles a plain of shifting shadows, the lesson is repeated wordlessly. Here, life isn't imposed by a single trait. It's sustained by a series of correct decisions, by constantly reading the terrain, by respecting the expenditure of energy, by cohesion when solitude isn't enough, and by solitude when the group is vulnerable. The desert is not an enemy. It's a stern teacher who doesn't forgive excess or distraction. And in that school without classrooms, each night closes one chapter and opens another, identical in its harshness, different in its details, where thirst, heat, shadow, and movement rewrite the story of those who persist in the great land of thirst.